Welcome to Career Uprising. I'm your host and professional career coach, Lorraine Rise. Join me as I guide you through an amazing journey of self-discovery and empowerment. If you are looking for work, changing careers, or stuck in a toxic job, then this is the show for you. I offer both practical and spiritual guidance to help you up-level and advance your career. Let's start the uprising. Hey everyone, you are listening to episode 78, Manage Your Mind to Advance Your Career with Lesa Edwards. So before we get started, everyone, take a moment and subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts or however you might like to listen. I'm on all the different platforms out there, but I would really appreciate that, and it would help you to know when a new episode comes out. I put them out very regularly, been trying to, so things are rolling along. I'm actually at, I cannot believe this, you guys, the 2-year mark for my show this spring, right now, actually in April. It is the 2-year birthday for the show. So we're also coming up on the 5-year anniversary of my company altogether. So this is a great time of year, and there's a lot of heavy things going on in the world right now. So I'm trying to celebrate that and be happy for that. It's incredibly hard for me to believe, but here I am, still rocking and rolling and still loving doing this show. So thank you to all of my listeners who've made that possible so that I'm not just talking to nobody in my microphone, right? I'm talking to you guys, the listeners. So right now, recording this, we are still in the thick of it with coronavirus going on, and most likely will be for a while longer, who knows? But I think that today's message is actually going to be really timely. And I was also thinking that this interview that I'm about to do with Lesa might come out a little bit later, but I've actually bumped it up. So this show is going to be coming out, I believe, April 13th, in just a couple of days from this recording, because I think that this is a message we all need to hear right now. We're going to be talking about managing our mind. And you might be wondering what I'm talking about, but you're going to find out. And we're going to talk about managing our mind, but also our emotions. They go together so closely. So what I want to do is I've enlisted the help of my friend and fellow career coach, Lesa Edwards. Lesa is many things, including a master resume writer, a certified job search strategist, a certified executive and leadership development coach, an award-winning podcaster, and a national speaker. So she also has clients on every continent. I think this is really cool, except Antarctica, which I think is funny. That's an amazing achievement. So I'm really, really happy to have Lesa, and I'm going to let her tell more of her story in just a moment. But I think she's actually a really, really great person to help us with this topic about managing our mind and our emotions, especially now in a time of uncertainty. And I think a lot of people are wondering, can I still advance my career? What's the point? What should I be doing? How can I make the use of this time? Is anyone hiring? There's so many thoughts, I think, that are swirling around in our heads right now. So I think that she has a very powerful message and a great perspective. And that's why I want to have her help us with this, because we talk a lot about this on my show, but she's going to offer her experience, her tools, her strategies that she uses with her clients. And I think it's going to be a great conversation. So without further ado, welcome to the show, Lesa.
Thank you so much, Lorraine. I am thrilled to be on the show with you, and I feel like we are old friends now, even though we've never met in person.
Yeah, so what Lesa's talking about is I'm going to be on her show as well. We're both podcasters, and so we're kind of coming on each other's shows. So yeah, I love to do that and collaborate. Yeah, we've gotten to know each other, haven't we? Which is good.
Yes, we have. Yes. Yeah.
So why don't you start out and tell our listeners a little bit about you, tell them about your practice now and what you do and how you got to where you are today.
Well, I often say that I think that linear career paths are super boring, and I certainly haven't had that kind of a linear career path. And so my undergraduate degree is in music education, and I just knew that I wanted to be a music teacher and eventually teach at the college level when I was an undergraduate at Florida State University. And I did teach in the public schools for precisely 3 years and left not because anything was wrong, but because of getting married and having to move. And I thought, okay, I've done this. Let's see what else there is out there. And from there, I became a corporate trainer. And from there, I became I went into career services, and I spent 22 years at 2 universities running their career services function. And it has been such a great experience to translate that, which I did for college students, into what I do now for, I call it the grown-ups, right? And so working with folks who are, sometimes mid-career, sometimes 5 to 10 years out of college, but I kind of help them with the whole kit and caboodle, if you will, in terms of the resume, the cover letter, the LinkedIn profile, the job search coaching, the interview coaching, the salary negotiation coaching, and as we're talking about today, the all-important mental piece around all of that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's a piece people overlook. A lot of people, they really, really do. I think there's a lot of folks, I don't know if you've noticed it, who, when they're making a career change or want to get a promotion or whatever change they want to affect in their careers, they go right for, the resume or the cover letter or the LinkedIn and all these other things that are a part of the process, but they're a later stage part of the process, right? Do you find that people don't really understand how this mindset piece fits into the process?
Yeah, or they have a misperception of what it is. They think if they think positive thoughts and write affirmations and put them on all the mirrors, that's going to do the trick. And it really is so much more than that and so much deeper than that if it's done what I would consider to be correctly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, right now in particular, as you know, of course, is a challenging time to look for a job. There's a lot of things going on in the world with the pandemic. And that's really, I think, has a lot of people uncertain about what is going to happen. And it was already hard enough to look for work, I think, and change careers. So now it's even harder, right? So what tools are you using to help clients through this time to still be productive, still advance their careers? How are you managing this with clients?
First and foremost, I am reminding them that the goal they had at the outset of this, whether that was, January 1st, they were going to start looking for a job, or if they've lost their job because of the virus, if they have a goal of finding their dream job in 2020, that hasn't changed. Yeah, the circumstance of the world has changed, and there are some interesting, changes that we need to make in our strategy because of that. But our goal is still our goal, and it's so important to keep that in mind because I think you can probably agree with me on this. You see a lot of memes and people commenting on social media, sort of tongue-in-cheek, but I'm not sure it completely is, where they're talking about how much weight they're gaining, and they're talking about how much they're drinking, and they're talking about, the how they're wasting time and not being productive. And that is available to everybody. It's available to everybody that's listening to us right now. However, I like to think about 90 days from now. So let's just say that we're able to peek ourselves out from our quarantines in 90 days and sort of see the rest of the world. And as we start to come back together again with our friends, what do we want to have said these 90 days of quarantine, or however long it turns out to be, was about for us? What did we achieve, or what did we make happen in our life? What did we produce during that time? And that really has been a motivating factor for me, because I did go through a week period where I was thought, I think the answer to the quarantine is to eat just everything. Just truly, I want to put as much food as, and then I sort of had this, this moment where I thought that's not going to serve me. I've got to stop this. And what tools can I use that are more, what thoughts can I have? What actions can I take that are going to get me to some place in 90 days that I can be super proud of and I can look back on with that pride?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I love that you recognize and help people recognize that no matter what is going on in the world, it doesn't change necessarily for you what you want to achieve. Maybe it changes how and your approach and what you're doing during this time, but it doesn't necessarily stop all of that, right? I think it would be easy for a lot of us to just stop everything and pause and not do anything and kind of succumb to the insecurity of it. But I love that you say that there will be a time when we come out of this, and what do you want to show for it, right? What do you want to have to be able to look back and say that you did with this time? Did you put everything on hold, or did you just pivot and do something different that maybe you thought you were, but still make good use of the time? So I know that one thing that you use in your coaching is something that I'm familiar with too, but a lot of our listeners won't be, called the model. And we're both fans of Brooke Castillo, who is a really, really famous and successful life coach. She's somebody who I've been influenced by, and I know you too. Can you share with us what is the model? Just a brief overview so listeners have an understanding of what we're talking about when we refer to that and how it could be used in a situation like this.
So Brooke, in formulating the model, she is very quick to say that she didn't invent the model. She just observed the model, because the model is how the world works. And looking at all of the great thought leaders kind of in history and the contemporary ones, she recognized that everything in the world is either a circumstance, a thought, a feeling, an action, or a result. And of those 5 things, the only thing that we don't have control over is the circumstances in our lives. And circumstances are those things that we could prove in a court of law. They have no emotion attached to them. They have no bias attached to them. They are factual. So if we look at the current situation, there is a global pandemic. Now, you may hear that as a listener and you may think, well, that's clearly a terrible thing. It's a negative thing. But actually it isn't. It isn't until we have a thought about it. So there's this thing going on out in the world, and we can substitute whatever we want for that circumstance. Right now, the circumstance everyone's dealing with is COVID, but it could easily be, I was just fired. You can certainly prove that in a court of law. I've had a medical illness, some sort of medical condition that you could name. Those are circumstances over which we have no immediate control. The great news about the model is that every other piece of it is totally under our control. So how we think about that situation, that circumstance, is going to affect how we feel, what actions we take, and what results we get. So if we look at COVID, one way that we could look at it in a sort of negative way is, I can't possibly look for a job now. There are no jobs available. And these are things, I'm sure you're hearing the same thing from your clients that I'm hearing from them. Now, if we think about, let's just take, there are no jobs available. How are you going to feel if you think that thought? Well, defeated might be one, depressed, pointless. Those are all emotions that you might have when you think the thought, there are no jobs. No one is going to get up, get dressed, get to work on an active job search strategy, really giving it everything they have and going at it with what we like to call sort of massive action if they're thinking that thought and feeling that feeling. So what's going to happen in that scenario? There are no jobs. I'm feeling defeated. I'm going to maybe, keep my pajamas on all day. I'm going to, maybe look at job boards, not much else. I'm going to give it a half-hearted effort. I'm not going to network. And then the result that I'm going to get if I think that way is I'm not going to get a job, because the brain has set out to prove the thought. That's what the brain does. So it's called confirmation bias. I've decided that there are no jobs out there. That's my thought. And I'm out there looking for evidence of that. And when there is evidence to the contrary, that there are jobs and there are opportunities, my brain will disregard them as anomalous data. They don't matter. It's not important. It's not what matters. So that's the experience we're going to have if we have that thought, there are no jobs. But let's look at it from another perspective. What if we think people are hiring, companies are hiring out there? So what kind of a feeling might we have if we think that? Maybe hopeful. What actions are we going to take? We're going to make an effort. We're going to make more of an effort. We're going to take that massive action. We're going to try a bunch of things because we recognize that maybe we have to get a little bit more creative and be a little bit more persistent right now and be a little bit more patient. But we're going to do whatever it takes. And the result we're going to get is a job. And the reason we're going to get that job is because we decided in our brain that there were jobs available out there. And so our brain went out there looking for evidence that there were jobs, and we found a great one and we got it. That's how the model works.
I love that. I absolutely love that. So it's CTFAR. The circumstance, which is a fact, completely neutral, just a fact. The thought you have about it, the feeling that you get from that thought, then the actions you take, and then the result. And I completely agree that all of those steps happen, and they happen really in that order. right? But a lot of
Yes.
people will think, oh, there's the circumstance, and then they go right to the result, not realizing that it was all the thoughts and feelings and actions they had in between that created that result. Would that be another way to kind of, sum it up?
Absolutely.
Yes.
It is all about what you think. And I hope that listeners are hearing the good news in that, which is that what is going on out there in the world does not have to determine your experience of the world. And in fact, it does not. It's what you think about that. And that is 100% in your purview to decide how to think about something. Now, let's make sure we're really clear about the fact that I don't want anybody, and I don't think you do either, want anybody out there going, yay, COVID, woohoo. No, that's not what we're talking about, but we're talking about recognizing it as a thing that has happened. Nothing has gone wrong in the world. This was supposed to happen. How do we know it was supposed to happen? Because it's happening. And if we argue with it, that's like arguing with reality. And I love the phrase, I forget who Brooks talked about this, but if you argue with reality, you'll lose, but only 100% of the time. And so we can argue with that and we can say this shouldn't be, but the fact is it is. So I'm not expected to, nor do I expect you to think that COVID is the best thing that's ever happened. However, I can decide what to make it mean about my job search. I can decide to make it I don't have to be worrying about, oh my God, I'm going to die. My family's going to die. We're all going to get sick. That's not going to serve me to have those kind of thoughts. What could I think instead? Many people are staying healthy. I am taking the proper precautions. So again, I'm not going to this la la land place of life is grand and glorious when there's a pandemic going on, but I'm not going to the place of doom and gloom and worst case scenario either.
Mm-hmm. I think the thing with this that I wonder if what people struggle with is this way of thinking really requires a high degree of accountability and responsibility from the person, right? Because then we can't put things on other people. We can't blame life and the weatherman and the government and the circumstances. Sure, we live in an interconnected world, but the way I see this is that I'm going to take personal responsibility for my experience and what I make this mean and what I do with what happens. And I think that people sometimes are not used to that or not comfortable perhaps with that level of responsibility and accountability for their thoughts and their feelings and their actions. Right. But if they can embrace it, they can see it's a really empowering thing. It's really good news for me to tell people, yes, you're in control.
Yes. Well, and the flip side of it is that you're not in control of another single solitary human being on the earth. And so anyone's attempts to control a spouse or an adult child or a coworker or a boss is a complete waste of time because they're going to do what they get to do. The humans will be the humans. But I get to completely control what I make that mean and how I experience that person and their, actions or behaviors or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. What I like about the model is this is so much similar to what I already teach, but it puts it into a formula that you can kind of plug and play a little bit, which I think makes it easy for a lot of folks. So is this something that you use in your practice? Do you walk clients through the model? Hey, let's put the circumstance in the C line and kind of have them plug it in. And what have been some of the results? Have you had clients kind of have any breakthroughs or epiphanies or anything like that when you implement this?
Heavens, yes. So I do use it with all of my clients.
I had a feeling.
I use it in my consults. So when they're initially, talking to me about whether we're a good fit together to work together and whether, I can help them, I listen to what they're saying and I plug that into a model and point out what they're thinking. And it's often about the purchase that they might be making and working with me. And I'm sure you're the same way. This is not, $100 that we're asking them to spend.
Right.
And that's, money for some people. And I can raise my hand among them. Money is one area where, my thoughts can go as, bonkers as anyone. And so looking at, what are you making that expense mean? Or what are you making it mean when you say, I have to talk to my spouse, like what's really going on there? So I certainly use it in the consult phase. As we get into the job search, we're looking at that again for their thoughts because that's going to affect how they show up for their job search. And I am reminded of a client that he's an executive level that I worked with last year for a pretty extended period of time because he would come and go. He would kind of drop out, and I knew what was going on with him. And so I kind of said, okay, we're going to have an appointment. We're going to, I know you haven't made progress like you'd wanted to, but we're going to have a conversation. And in that conversation, it was clear that his thoughts were, he had been an entrepreneur and a kind of what I call a serial entrepreneur, and he wanted to transfer that back. And it had been a while since he'd worked for anyone else. He had all kinds of doubts about his ability to go back into somebody else's work environment and produce the exceptional results that he had achieved for his own businesses. And so that was holding him back, because as you can imagine, if you wake up in the morning and you're thinking you need to do a job search, but I don't know if I can do the work that they want me to do. I don't know if I'm a pretender. Maybe I can't really do the work. You're not going to show up fully for the job search. And so he was kind of hiding from that job search, and just that awareness was so important. And for another client at the kind of other end of the spectrum who's just gotten out of college, he was really avoiding the job search. And as we did this work, what it came down to was that he just graduated a year ago. He's in television production, and he didn't think he had the experience. He wasn't recognizing that he would be competing against other recent college graduates. And when we looked at all of his experience, and a lot of this had to do with as we were writing his resume and he saw himself through my eyes, he recognized that he did have all of this experience, and it completely changed his mindset about his ability to show up and be a great candidate for the jobs he wanted. And had we not done that, we would have continued to spin in sort of half-hearted job search.
Absolutely. I love this. I love the model that you use it and the examples that you're sharing, because I really feel like it puts the power back in our hands to control our experience, which we always had, but we always had the power, but we don't all realize it, right? This is a way of acknowledging it and being thoughtful and intentional about the power that you have always had to change your circumstances in it. And I know for myself too, when I show up better for something, it makes such a difference in my experience, even if it isn't what I thought I wanted to be doing with my day or something like that. My attitude directly affects my entire experience. And so I'm convinced of it, but it's a way of life. I know a lot of people, it is a way of life, right? It's a way of looking
Absolutely.
at the world that you have to adopt every day. It's the long view. So something like this is something you have to commit to over and over again every day to manage your mind. And I think that's such a timely message right now, because a lot of us, are going stir crazy. We're staying inside the house. We're getting sick of our loved ones. And those are just the first world problems, right? Then there's the people who are losing their jobs, or their businesses are closing, or getting sick. So I know one thing that Brooke says is that, and perhaps the pandemic is the best example, is that you can use this on anything, no matter how severe. Everything works. No matter the trauma, the crisis, it works every time. The principle is the same. And I think
Yes.
that's true. And we're seeing that now, because this is a pretty serious subject to be putting in the model, and having the courage to go, you know what? I can see positive things that are happening with this. I can take control of my experience. So I'm so grateful that you shared this, because this is a kind of a new angle on something we've talked about, but you kind of gave it a name and give it a little formula.
Yes, yes. And even, speaking specifically about the virus, because Brooke's she's done several additional podcasts about it, but we've been working on it all this month in Self-Coaching Scholars. And one of the things that she's been coaching a lot of people around, depending on the situation, is really just sitting with that emotion of fear, or that emotion of, concern for a loved one. Or I can remember one woman who was very concerned about what she considered to be her irresponsible father, who was going out and among the people, and her mother was kind of at death's door. I think she was on oxygen. So she was very susceptible to anything he might bring in. And of course, he was not a spring chicken either. But just that ability to sit with that fear. Like, I'm feeling anxious about this today. I'm giving it a name. experiencing it in your body, not trying to push it away. Because when we push it away, then we get into resistance. And that's where we get into overeating, over drinking, watching too much Netflix. That's my drug of choice, by the way, or whatever it is that you do too much of as a way of avoiding your emotions. But just being willing to sit with it, because here's the beautiful side of that. And this applies to your job search as well, because if you're feeling anxious about your job search, it's okay to say, I'm feeling anxious about my job search. Give it a name. Let it be in your body, because then you realize it's not going to kill you. It's just a feeling in your body. It's a sensation. You're going to be fine. It's not going to kill you. What is happening physiologically is it is our primitive brain that is not recognizing the difference between anxiety over a job search and the mastodon at the cave. And it thinks that this job search is for sure going to kill us. It will eat us alive. And of course, nothing could be further from the truth. There are very few things in today's world, COVID, of course, is one of them, that can actually kill us. Most of it is just our primitive brain doing what it's done to keep us safe and keep us alive as a species for years. But now that we have evolved to where we are, it is incumbent upon us to use that prefrontal cortex to make executive decisions about how we want to live our lives, how we want to experience the world, so that we're not at the effect of those circumstances that we've been talking about.
Absolutely. Well, I am so grateful to have you on the show to share this. And so where can listeners go to learn more about you, Lesa?
Oh my gosh, where can they go? They can find me on Facebook at exclusivecareercoaching.com. I live on LinkedIn most of my time, so find me at Lesa Edwards, and you have to spell my first name right, but I'm sure I'm the first one that comes up. It's Lesa. I'm on Instagram at Lesa.Edwards, and you can find my website at Exclusive Career Coaching. And my podcast is called The Exclusive Career Coach. And I think I'm up to I just put episode 122 out this week.
Woohoo! Yeah, I'm approaching 100. We'll have to have a little giveaway or celebration or something. It's, podcasting it's a long-term game, right? It takes, a while. It's something you commit to for the long term, but I love doing it. So
I
wonderful.
do too. I love it. I love it.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. And to the listeners, I hope you take this message to heart. I hope that you will practice the model and give it a try. It's CTFAR, circumstance, thought, feeling, action, and result. And I hope that you guys are doing okay out there. But if you need help, you certainly can reach out to Lesa or myself. And you can find me at careeruprising.com. I also have my email list and a Facebook group. And I too live on LinkedIn predominantly, so I can be found there much more than Twitter or Facebook or anything like that. But I hope you guys are doing well. I hope you have a wonderful day. And I will be back next week with another episode. Take care, guys. That's it for today's show. Thank you so much for listening. If you like what you heard today, please consider giving the show a positive review on iTunes. It would mean a lot to me, and it would help to spread the word so that others can learn about the show. Thanks again for tuning in, and I can't wait to connect with you again next time on Career Uprising.
This show is brought to you by InflowRadio.com, the best curated talk radio network for personal development, wellness, spirituality, and conscious business.